Malami and his son may spend up to 200 years in prison if found guilty of all charges brought against them by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in what has become one of the most explosive corruption cases Nigeria has seen in recent years. The charges are massive, the allegations are shocking, and the implications are staggering for a man who once occupied the highest legal office in the land as Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice under former President Muhammadu Buhari. This is not just another corruption case. This is a story that reveals how power and access to government resources can allegedly be converted into personal wealth on a scale that most Nigerians can barely comprehend. The EFCC has filed 16 separate counts of money laundering charges against Abubakar Malami, his son Abdulaziz Malami, and an employee of Rahmaniya Properties Limited named Hajia Bashir Asabe, with the charge sheet dated December 23, 2025. Under Nigerian law, each count of money laundering carries a prison sentence of not less than 4 years but not more than 14 years, with 16 counts facing Malami and his son. If the court decides that these sentences should run consecutively, they could theoretically be looking at well over 200 years in prison, although Nigerian law typically allows sentences to run concurrently, which would reduce the actual prison time significantly. But let us talk about what the EFCC is actually accusing these people of doing, because the details are absolutely mind-blowing. According to the charges filed at the Federal High Court in Abuja, the former Attorney General is being asked to account for 30 houses valued at a combined total of 212.8 billion naira. Just pause and think about that number for a moment. 212.8 billion naira. We are talking about an empire of real estate spread across Abuja, Kano, Kebbi, and other parts of Nigeria, with properties that include luxury duplexes in Maitama, one of Abuja's most expensive neighborhoods, hotels, commercial buildings, and residential estates. The EFCC claims that most of these properties were acquired during Malami's 8 years in office, from 2015 to 2023, the entire duration of the Buhari administration. The prosecution is alleging something far more serious than just buying expensive houses. They claim that Malami used a sophisticated network of companies and proxies to launder money and conceal the true origin of the funds used to acquire these properties. The charge sheet mentions companies like Metropolitan Auto Tech Limited and Rahmaniya Properties Limited as vehicles allegedly used to move billions of naira around while disguising where the money actually came from. This is classic money laundering behavior, using corporate entities to create layers of transactions that make it difficult to trace the original source of funds. Let me break down some of these charges so you can understand just how extensive this case is. The first count alleges that between July 2022 and June 2025, Malami and his son used Metropolitan Auto Tech Limited to hide over 1 billion naira in a sterling bank account, and that they should have known this money came from criminal activities. The second count says that between September 2020 and February 2021, while Malami was still serving as Attorney General, they concealed over 600 million naira through the same company. Think about that. The man who was supposed to be enforcing the law was allegedly using his position to launder hundreds of millions of naira. The third count involves a loan arrangement where the EFCC claims that in March 2021, Malami and his son retained 600 million naira as cash collateral through Metropolitan Auto Tech Limited for a 500 million naira loan that Sterling Bank gave to Raihan Hotels Limited. Why would you need 600 million naira in cash to secure a 500 million naira loan unless something suspicious was going on? The fifth count involves 500 million naira allegedly used to purchase a luxury duplex on Amazon Street in Maitama in November 2022, with the EFCC saying the money used was dirty money that had been disguised to look legitimate. If you are enjoying this breakdown of what is shaping up to be one of Nigeria's biggest corruption trials, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel, because we will be following this case every step of the way and bringing you updates as they happen. What makes all of this even more shocking is that these transactions happened while Malami was actively serving as the Attorney General. This was not someone on the sidelines of government. This was the Chief Law Officer of Nigeria, the person responsible for advising the president on legal matters and ensuring that justice was served. The irony could not be more complete if these allegations turn out to be true. Here was a man who had taken an oath to uphold the law, who had the power to prosecute others for corruption, allegedly enriching himself through the very crimes he was supposed to be fighting against. The EFCC is not playing around with this prosecution. They have brought in some of the biggest legal names in Nigeria to handle this case. The prosecution team is being led by two senior advocates of Nigeria, Jibrin Okutepa and Ekene Iheanacho, along with 14 other lawyers. That's a team of 16 lawyers working on this case, which shows you how seriously the anti-corruption agency is taking this matter. They have also front-loaded 10 witnesses who will testify in accordance with the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. The EFCC has also indicated that they may invoke the Non-Conviction Asset Forfeiture Clause of their Establishment Act, which allows them to seize assets even without securing a criminal conviction. This provision gives the Commission a 14-day window to ask anyone who has an interest in the properties to show cause as to why these assets should not be forfeited to the federal government. If nobody can provide legitimate documentation showing that the properties were acquired with clean money, the government can simply take them without having to wait for the criminal trial to conclude. One thing that stands out in all these charges is the phrase that appears repeatedly: the defendants reasonably ought to have known that the funds formed proceeds of unlawful activities. This is important from a legal standpoint because under Nigerian money laundering laws, you do not have to prove that the defendant knew with absolute certainty that the money was dirty. You just have to show that any reasonable person in their position should have suspected something was wrong. Given that Malami was the Attorney General, a trained lawyer and a senior advocate of Nigeria, it will be very difficult for him to argue that he did not know that billions of naira moving through various companies without clear legitimate sources might be problematic. Now, let us talk about what this means for Nigeria as a country. This case has huge implications beyond just one man and his alleged crimes. For years, Nigerians have complained about corruption in government, about how public officials use their positions to enrich themselves, while ordinary citizens struggle with poverty and poor infrastructure. Here is a case that seems to exemplify everything that is wrong with the system. A man who was supposed to be fighting corruption allegedly built a vast business empire worth hundreds of billions of naira while in office. The timing of this case is also significant. Malami served throughout the Buhari administration, which came to power in 2015 on an anti-corruption platform. President Buhari campaigned on the promise to fight corruption and recover stolen assets. Yet here we have his Attorney General now facing charges of massive money laundering. This will inevitably raise questions about how much oversight there was in that administration and how these properties could have been acquired without anyone noticing. Malami has previously asked the EFCC chairman to recuse himself from the case, claiming there is a witch hunt motivated by old grudges. This is a common defense strategy in high-profile corruption cases in Nigeria, where defendants often argue they are being persecuted for political reasons. Whether there's any merit to these claims remains to be seen, but what cannot be disputed is the documentary evidence that the EFCC has assembled. The case is expected to begin in early 2026 once the Federal High Court sets a date for arraignment. When it does begin, it promises to be one of the most closely watched trials in recent Nigerian history. If convicted on all counts, Malami and his son face decades in prison, substantial fines, and the forfeiture of all these properties. For ordinary Nigerians, the key question is whether the justice system can actually hold powerful people accountable. Remember to stay subscribed because we will bring you every development in this case as it happens.